Hello everyone, welcome to part 8 of the Campaign of Doom, where today we are going to be pitting the 153 group strength of the Cleansers of the World against the 141 group strength of the Mysteries of the Dark. The scenario we're going to play today is Scouring the Land, which is the quarters scenario where we're trying to capture as much of the board as possible. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set up the models and then we will show you the deployment. Once again, I forgot, actually we should be showing off the fighters first. So for the Cleansers of the World, we have a marksperson with crossbow, we have a thief with bow and dagger, we have a cultist with basic weapon, alchemist with dagger, apprentice with basic weapon, fanatic with pair of basic weapons, brawler, healer, who comes with a staff, another cultist with basic weapon, a cultist with a bludgeon, and right down at the bottom we have a fanatic with 2 basic weapons as well. However, this fanatic down here has the battered arm, and this alchemist and this brawler have the broken leg, so we'll see those throughout the game. As for the Mysteries of the Dark, we have marksperson with crossbow and basic weapon, marksperson with bow and dagger, assassin with pair of basic weapons, apprentice with pair of daggers, ex-soldier with great weapon, assassin with sword or basic weapon and dagger, thief with dagger, and alchemist with staff. Now for skills, we have tough as leather on the crossbow marksperson, so they get +1 wound. We have street smarts on the ex-soldier, so they get a +1 to their intelligence, or -1 to intelligence to make it better. Then the alchemist themselves has crushing might, so actually gets a +1 to their damage when attacking in close combat. So as you can see here, that is both sides deployed, with my opponent over here going for a long line of quite a few models they've got, sort of spreading out over this way to try and encapsulate all these quarters. Whereas on my side we have gone for sort of like one model over here, quite a few in the middle, and then a few over on this side to sort of try and see if we can't get rid of a few enemy models and equalise out the field before we start going for quarters. With that, we are about to go into turn 1, so we will see who gets the initiative. Slight addendum to the deployment, my opponent has actually used their old war tunnels to put this marksperson already up here on this rooftop. For me, I have tactical plans as my exploration, so that doesn't do anything at the beginning. That's where I can force a reroll in the initiative phase of 1 turn, so we'll see that in action later in the game. Turn 1 initiative, my opponent rolls a 2, I roll a 1, so they'll be going first, and I get my reaction token. With that, we come to the end of turn 1's movement phase. So my opponent has sort of moved up a group on this side and then a group over on this side, whereas I've actually started to swarm more towards this direction, so I have a plan of trying to go across this way. First bit of shooting for my opponent, Alchemist is going to use Firewall number 4 over here. So they're going to roll to see if it goes off on a 2+, which it does, and we've marked it up that it goes there, like that. So we've checked with my opponent's other marksperson or thief over there, which cannot shoot. So instead we're just going to go straight to this marksperson who's going to shoot into my alchemist, looking for a 4 as the cover. That's a hit, rolling to wound. That is a single wound on my alchemist. With that, we come to the end of turn 1. I have decided not to use an alchemy, and both of my shooting models have no chance of hitting anyone. I also did not use my reaction token because there was not really anything I needed to react to at this point. I was thinking to use an alchemy over here, so I didn't want to react against that shot, but now I look back at it, no, I'm okay, it's fine, we just didn't end up using the token. So with that, we are going to close out turn 1 and go into turn 2. Initiative for turn 2, 4 for my opponent, 2 for me, so I'm going to keep that with 2 reaction tokens, and they'll be going first. With that, we come to the end of the turn 2 movement phase. My opponent has sort of again pushed quite wide around on this side and then moved a few models up here. I've really sort of gone heavily over into this corner because I do have a plan for later, but we'll see how that works. With that, we are actually just going to head on into the shooting phase. First bit, my opponent is going to throw a Molotov cocktail, the number 1, from this alchemist all the way to here. We've miraculously managed to balance that dice. So on a 2+ it goes off. It does, just. And with that, models within 4 inches. Assassin. Yep. So it gets these 2 models here. On a 5+, this assassin will take a wound. He doesn't. On a 5+, he does. So my alchemist goes up to a 2nd wound. Next, my opponent's crossbow marksperson is going to fire down into my alchemist. Still looking at a 4 to hit. Rerolling for being a marksperson. That's a hit, rolling to wound. And that's a critical, so that is then removed. Lastly, my opponent's thief is going to fire at my marksperson. Now they've got soft cover and they have moved, so they're hitting on a 4 would go down to hitting on a 6 in this case, which they don't do. With my first bit of shooting, marksperson here is going to fire back at the thief. He'll require a 5 simply because the marksperson starts on a better shoot skill. Reroll for being a marksperson. No. Last bit of shooting from me, because I can't use alchemy anymore, or concoctions. It's going to be this marksperson who hasn't moved into this marksperson who will be getting hard cover. So we're here looking for a 5. No. With that, we actually come to the end of turn 2, because again, we have no one lined up for any combats. So what we're going to do is head on into turn 3 and see if I can't finally get somebody into base contact with my opponent. Turn 3, even though I've lost my alchemist, I still can't roll under the number of models I've lost, so there's no determination yet. But there is initiative. My opponent rolls a 6. I roll a 4. I am actually going to use my tactical plans and demand that my opponent re-roll their 6. Into a 1. That's what I wanted, so that means I'm going first and they're going second with a reaction token. Before I got a chance to move my assassin, my opponent's going to use their 1 reaction to shoot me with a snapshot. Now they're looking at a 5 because while it's only soft cover, the assassin makes that additional -1, taking it down to a 5. Reroll for marksperson. That's a hit, rolling to wound. That is also a critical, so my assassin takes 2 wounds and then uses his spare time to run up here. End of turn 3's movement phase. We've somehow got here without much combat going on apart from getting shot down. That is the end of this movement phase. My opponent again spreading around and moving out to get the corners. I've tried to pincer down the middle, but unfortunately my plans have kind of been stymied by me losing alchemy and this taking a lot longer to achieve than I thought. Along with that, my wounded assassin over in the corner there, who unfortunately is probably going to cost me as well. But we shall move on to the shooting phase and see what happens. First bit from myself, this model here, this marksperson, is going to fire into this thief, needing a 5 because of move and soft cover. No, they get the same 3 again. First bit of shooting for my opponent, reacted marksperson down here into my assassin. It'll be a 5 to hit because they've moved, but that's it. That's a hit, rolling to wound. That's not a wound in this case. Next we move on to this thief over here, who's going to fire into the assassin. Now, he would be hitting on a 4, but the cover for 5, and assassin makes it even harder for 6. No, and there's no rerolls for thieves. Once again, my opponent's alchemist is going to throw yet another Molotov cocktail to this point here, with the number 1, and they're going to roll to see if it goes off on a 2+. Oh. Which it doesn't. Ooh, that's unfortunate. So with that, we come to the end of turn 3. We haven't again got any combats because I still just can't get my models. I've tried to be a bit conservative with them, and that has cost me by not allowing me to get into combat as quickly as I'd liked. So we're going to end the turn here and go into turn 4. So once again, we are into the initiative phase of turn 4 in this case. Ooh, we've rolled the same. Let's see what we get. Okay, so my opponent goes first and I go second with 2 reaction tokens. So my opponent has decided to use Path of the Righteous Flame, which is going to go 8 inches down this way and hit these 2 models. It's just a straight automatic hit, so we're looking at a 4+ to wound this model, because it's damage 4. That's critical, but being an ex-soldier, I only take 1 of those wounds. That's good. Then they're looking at rolling for my apprentice behind them, who takes a single wound. My opponent has decided this marksperson is going to fire at my ex-soldier, so I'm going to react, and I'm going to go 3 inches closer to my intended charges. So I'm using this to sort of get a bit closer, even though I know my opponent's firing at me. So they still get to hit me on a 5 because of the cover, which they do, roll into wound, which they don't. My opponent has decided that this thief over here is going to fire into my assassin because they're in the open, so looking at a 4 to hit, which they get, rolling to wound, which they don't. For my only bit of shooting, it's going to be from this marks person to this thief, looking at a 4 because I haven't moved, but the thief does have soft cover. That's a hit, rolling to wound. That is not a wound. So my opponent was going to start the charge phase off, or the combat phase off, with this model Fanatic charging here into my assassin, but I'm going to use my reaction and charge directly into him instead. Now, my opponent and I go at the same time, but I'm going to let my opponent roll first, because in this case, that's a battered arm Fanatic, so they'd be hitting on 5s instead of 4s with no rerolls. Okay, so they didn't get any there. I will go next with my basic weapon, hitting on a 2, because I'm an assassin, which it does, wounding on a 4, 5 and 6, which it doesn't, and then a dagger, chucking it all over the place, dagger for 2, hits, 5 and 6, wound, no, but I'm the one who made the charge, so my opponent runs away on a 4+, which they don't, so I get another free round of attack, starting with the sword. Try that again, sword. Yeah, we'll count that one. And rolling to wound, no. Dagger, hits. Dagger doesn't wound either, so my opponent gets another chance to run away. I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon, so I better hit them. I better wound them. I did get a wound from the sword, or from the basic weapon. Dagger, hits. Doesn't wound, but my opponent can run away on a 4+. And finally they do, so they're just going to back away. And I'm actually going to just straight take their position behind the wall like that. Next bit of combat, my opponent's cultist is bravely going to charge my assassin, looking at 1 attack for the basic weapon, hitting on a 4. That's a hit, roll to wound, damage 3, resistance 3. That is not a wound. So I'm going to attack back, 1 attack with the basic weapon first, which hits, and gets a critical. And then I'm looking at 1 attack with the dagger, which also hits, looking at a 5, 6. No, but my opponent is now the one running away on a 3 or more, which they do, so they're going to back away like that, and then I'm going to roll, and I'm going to go 3 inches, and unfortunately, because I can't go within an inch of this alchemist, I can't really go anywhere, I kind of just have to shuffle like that and accept that that's where I'm going to be. Next, my opponent's cultist is going to charge into my assassin, try and push them back, looking at 1 attack hitting on a 4. We'll re-roll that to begin with, which does hit, looking to roll to wound, which also does as well, and that is my assassin gone. So my opponent gets to roll and see where they go. 3 inches.
I'm just going to go back here to my opponent.
And with that, they have moved back over there. So after a little back and forth, my soldier is actually going to move along here, over here, and into base contact with my opponent's alchemist. So I have 1 attack with my great weapon, hitting on a 3, which it does, just. We're currently looking at damage 6 versus resistance 3, because that alchemist just has a dagger. That would go up to a 5, so I have caused a single wound on that alchemist. Now my opponent gets to attack back, hitting on a 3, which they do, looking at a 6 to wound, which they don't. So in this case, they've got to roll, see if they back away, which they do. And in this case, they're not really able to back away anywhere more than just sort of here. So I'm going to roll my dice, 2 inches, so I can only really back away into this corner there. Now with all that said and done, we are actually at the end of turn 4. So we're just about to go into turn 5, where I will have to start doing both determination and pluck test depending on what I roll. Start of turn 5, I have to roll 2 dice for my determination because I have lost my alchemist. So neither of them is a 1, which means I haven't had to pick the lowest and lose a model. Also, because of that, I have 6 models on the table still, so I cannot fail my pluck test. Turn 5, time for the initiative roll. My opponent gets a 2. I get a 4, so I'll be going first, and they'll get 2 reaction tokens. End of the movement phase for turn 5. My opponent has decided they're going to play the objective, which is smart, and has actually moved away from my sort of straight strike down the middle. So at this point, with their reactions and things, it's going to be incredibly difficult for me to actually get any charges off at all. So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the shooting to sort of see what smattering of damage I can cause and they can cause. And then from there, we'll see if there's any combats at the end of this turn. First bit of shooting is actually going to be from my marksperson into this thief. Again, hitting them on a 4. There we go. Rolling to wound. It is a single wound on the thief. Next bit after that, this marksperson here into this marksperson, looking at a 5 because of the cover. I'll roll that again. Okay, still didn't even get the hit. So my opponent's first bit of shooting, thief, is going to shoot over into my apprentice, looking at a 4 because there's no movement penalties. No rerolls as well for being a thief. Next, the marksperson up here is going to fire down into the apprentice. They're looking at a 5 to hit because I've got the cover, which they get. Looking at damage 4, resistance 3. No, so no wounds again. Very last bit of shooting we're looking at. A heal from the healer into the alchemist. Start of the combat phase for turn 5, I'm going to have my assassin try and charge my opponent's alchemist, but I know for a fact they have reaction tokens, so yeah, they're just going to move 3 inches directly away from me, and yeah, my charge is completely impossible now, so that's all my charging. So actually, it's not just the end of my charging, it's the end of both our charging, because my opponent is not going to charge into combat, which is entirely understandable with the models they have. That means we have come to the end of turn 5 and we're just about to head into turn 6. Start of turn 6, I have to do my determination first. Rolled a 1, so I'm going to take my apprentice away because they have been wounded. And then on top of that, I am now going to have to roll, again I've lost my alchemist, so it's 2 dice for pluck, picking the highest. Doesn't matter what I reroll to that, that 6 is enough to see my team run away. And with that, we have come to the end of this battle report. As we can see, it really did not go that well for me. My opponent took the odd injury here and there, but I really got hammered, taking just too many models off the field for me. So, as that was me failing a pluck test, I will be getting no coins. My alchemist didn't even survive, so I still won't be getting any coins for that. So it's going to be a bit of a paltry showing for the Mysteries of the Dark. As for the Cleansers of the World, they're going to get quite a few coins for models removed, and they get a flat 12 added to their stored income for me failing the pluck test, irrelevant to how many quarters they had left, but they had quite a few, so they did quite well there. In terms of the post-game video, we will put that up. Again, that is for patrons, so I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the 3 tiers that you can join at. There is the Scoundrel tier for £2. That will get you access to discussion groups, the post-game videos, and any special videos that we decide to put up. For £4, you will get access to the Novice tier, which gets you the rules, any updates that we send out, any tools and resources for allowing you to play the game in both one-off games, campaign games, solo games, and even solo campaign games. So that's starting at £4 per month. We're also going to look at adding in other currencies for that. Then finally we have the Local Hero tier. The Local Hero tier is the one that gets you all of the things in the previous tiers, and then it also gets you access to additional content, early access content, and also you'll be able to add names into a hat, or names for the models, for the campaign that we have coming up after we finish this one. All that remains to say is thank you very much from myself and my opponent behind the camera. That is the end of this battle report for part 8. Patrons, we'll see you during the week with the post-game. Everyone else, we will see you next weekend with the next battle report.